Hey, Ancient World History, Mr. Skorecki here. Here with another introduction to our pod for the beginning of the second semester, quarter three, pod one. And we're going to talk about empires. We talked about empires before, but not really in the same way. Well, before we get into that, let's start with just the good paperwork stuff we need to do. Okay. So we're going to have to write assignments focused on discipline-specific content, which basically means we're going to, just kind of do some writing on it, like we always do, nothing major. Informative explanatory text, including the narration of historical events, scientific procedures, experiments, all those things. Clear and coherent writing, all that good stuff. Now, that's just because we have to do a writing assignment like we do every time. We're also going to evaluate the role groups and individuals played in the development of world history, both through society, politics, and economics. Importance of historical documents, artifacts, and sites, which are critical to world history. We'll talk about a bunch of geography in this. Evaluate how continuity change have impacted the world today, and look at how conflict and cooperation among groups have influenced the development of the world in Pennsylvania. We're going to talk about major empires, why the ones we're talking about now are different than the ones we talked before. We're going to talk about the Mongols. I know it's your favorite if you're watching the Crash Course videos. And how global conquests and wars, things are usually negative, can have such a positive outcome. So the first week we'll be talking about empires in general. Now, we're going to talk about an empire versus a country. A country, you can say, is kind of like an empire. It's taken over by a space, but not really. If you look at the definition, an empire is a spanning thing. It's many territories taken over by one and kind of a forced culture on them. If you look at previous examples of empires we've talked about, you've got Egypt, India, China, Korea. Greece and Rome were empires. We even talked a little bit last pod about how Rome went from a republic to an empire. So now we're going to go on to the Mongols and the Caliphs. So what's the difference? Well, if you notice today, what we have here on the screen today, there's a map of world empires in 1900. Now that's way more modern than we usually deal with in this class. But notice that that's most of the world with about 20 different countries. So we talk about a concept of empire that starts back then when we're talking about in like 500 CE or 500 AD and carries over for a really long time, 1500 years. Okay. And the reason that Egypt, India, China, Korea, Greece, and Rome aren't really considered empires by this definition is that they were all kind of local. They pretty much focused on one territorial area. They were done once they hit that point. They didn't want to expand. They were finished. They were content ruling over this. The empire is going to talk about with the Mongols and the Caliphs when the spread of Islam happens, wanted to rule everything. Okay? And that's really what makes them different. Because how you act when you're like, okay, I'm going to rule this and I'm done, is really different from when you want to say, I need to conquer everything. First, we'll talk about are the Mongols. If you've been watching the Crash Course videos, we talk about them being the exception. They manage to do things that other groups don't. So we'll talk about what makes them our first empire. Really, it's the same thing we just mentioned. The Mongols, starting with Genghis Khan, or Chinggis is I guess the better way to pronounce that. I've actually looked at the way Mongolian people speak today. Chinggis said, I want to conquer all of the world into one Mongol nation. He loved his people so much, he united all these tribes around him, and he starts taking over the world. Now, if you think, we've heard about people, uniting tribes and taking over, we have. Chinggis succeeds really well. He basically controls from all the way to the Pacific to all the way to the Mediterranean and along the spice route. So it's major, and we can look at what does it take to actually control that. You can't just kill everybody and say we own you now. Now you start looking at how people deal with controlling trade. The Mongols had passports, for example. Okay? And just for fun, think about of these two rulers we're going to talk about. Genghis Khan, the first Mongol king, or Khan as he was known, or Kublai, who was his grandson, but really even took over more land than Genghis did, or Genghis did. And lastly, we're going to talk about Islam. No, we're not going to the religion. We've done that. We're going to talk about the Caliphate empires, the Abbasid, the Umayyad, all of those. If you look at this map here, you'll see that it goes all the way from Spain, that's where Cordoba is in the west, all the way through North Africa, through the Middle East, into Asia proper, and into India. Okay. This comes from the idea that Islam is supposed to spread. It's this religion of submission to God. It's wonderful. We need to make everyone follow that. Islam is not the first religion to do this. So we're going to even ask that question. Well, this is kind of spurred by religion. The Mongols have their own religion, their own ideas of religion. Can you have an empire that doesn't have a religious purpose? And since we're comparing them, there's actually some binding there of Kublai Khan, who is Genghis Khan's grandson, the leader of the Golden Horde and the Iron Horde and everything, who conquers most of these territories. And he does practice Islam at points. So it's going to be interesting things to find out there, where if you understand the Mongols, you're going to see how they blend with Islam, and that'll help you understand the caliphates. Caliphates come from the caliph. Caliph is the leader from that. All right, that's it. So go ahead, answer the questions below. Once you're ready with those, go ahead and move on to the assignments, and I'll see you soon. Bye.